You've heard my opinions on several headless guitars, and many of you have disagreed with me on several points, which is a beautiful thing. In fact, it inspired me to get some other opinions. So on today's episode of the Strandberg Experiment, we're going to hear from Keith of 5 Watt World, Mathew Dale, who you probably know from a prior podcast, and an amazing guitarist I've yet to feature on the channel, Tory. All of their information is linked below, and I'll tie things up once we hear from them. The first question is, how long have you been playing Strandberg guitars, and what model did you pick?
I've been playing Strandberg guitars since 2017 when they released the Salem model. I'd been in the hospital actually in 2016 and came out pretty weak, having lost a lot of muscle mass from a prolonged time in the hospital. So I was looking at ergonomic guitars. Prior to that, I was playing pretty much exclusively PRS DGT guitars. And though I always have loved those and the sound, I've always also been fascinated by ergonomic guitars, going all the way back to my interest in Bill Frisell playing Klein guitars. The Salem model kind of put me over the edge because I've always been a big fan of the sound and shape and classic history of Telecaster, of course. And the wonderful sort of space age styling stirred together with the single cut slab body of the Salem really did it for me. I ordered two at the time thinking I would keep the one that I liked better, and I kept them both.
So I've been playing Strandberg guitars for about 1 to 2 years. I was actually originally looking for a headless Telecaster type of guitar and then found this company. I mean, I'd seen the guitars before, but that kind of piqued my interest.
I've had this Strandberg guitar for about 10 months now, kind of closing in on a year. This is the Strandberg Bowden Original NX6. After using this guitar on that 3-week cruise ship contract that I did, I've also used this live in my teaching studio and for producing YouTube videos as well.
Do you play Strandberg guitars exclusively?
Yeah, pretty much exclusively at this point.
I played them exclusively for 5 years. And then last year I actually had a chance to get a couple of PRS guitars as part of a sponsorship deal, and I really fell in love with them again and have been playing both PRS DGTs and their Model Eagle 5 guitar.
The Strandberg for me is not my main guitar. I would say that I'm primarily a PRS guy, and the two guitars behind me are what I am typically using when I'm out playing live or in my studio or out touring. And while these might seem like completely polar opposite guitars, they actually share a lot of similarities across some main features. For example, the scale length of the Strandberg is 25 inches to 25.5 inches, and the standard PRS scale length is 25 inches, like on my DGT. And what I do to compensate for the multi-scale length is I string my Strandberg with 11 to 50 strings, and on my mains, I use 11 to 52s. I like the way that string gauge feels on my PRSs.
What Strandberg feature or features most appeal to you?
The thing that appeals to me most about the Strandberg is that it has the amazing ergonomic features. Both the neck and the multi-scale appeal to me immediately, and I was comfortable playing on those guitars probably within the first 10 minutes. I just felt like they fit me. Also, I'm about 5'10", 150 pounds, and the guitar's scale, the size of the guitars, the way they feel and fit, just is perfect for me. Even now, I'll go back and forth between the PRS guitars and the Strandbergs, and I have absolutely no problems adjusting.
I like the portability of it. The 24 fret factor for a Telecaster is also really great. The biggest selling point is just the playability and the tone. You really don't have any buzz across the whole fingerboard, which for all of the polyphonic playing is a big selling point for me. So it's like a deluxe Telecaster, kind of a traditional model with vintage tones, but with modern playability.
The first thing that really caught my eye with the Strandberg was the form factor. It really seemed like it was everything that you needed a guitar to be and nothing that you didn't need. That design ethos kind of goes into the body carve and the ergonomics. I also really like the carbon fiber reinforcement on the neck. The Sir pickups sound amazing. The hardware is really, really, really solid. I like that I can get both humbucking and single coil tones out of this one guitar. And of course, as far as form factor is concerned, I really like the small gig bag that it comes with. Again, going along with the ethos of it's everything that you need and nothing that you don't. It traveled extremely well. I hesitate to call it a travel guitar because it's so much more than that, but definitely the travel aspect is what really appealed to me.
What features appeal to you the least and why?
There really aren't any features on the Strandbergs that I don't care for. I will say that the thing that makes them so great for me, size-wise, makes them sometimes look too small on people that are larger than me. Zach Childs and I did a interview where we did a live stream, and I carried my classic that's set up as an Esquire all the way to Nashville to have Zach play it. He sounded great on it, but it looked a little bit like a toy on him. So that's the only thing I can think of, is that the scale of the guitars, that there isn't a model except for the larger 7 and 8 string guitars that actually have that larger body.
I don't really have many qualms about this. The fact that they are true single coils, which I love the tone of, don't get me wrong. It's just that it would be nice if there was an integrated, like the Illich noise canceling system into that model. And then it would, in my opinion, it would be perfect.
A couple things that aren't my favorite about the Strandberg guitars. One would be the flatter fingerboard radius. Primarily being a PRS player, these are 10-inch radiuses, and this is a 20-inch radius on the Strandberg. It's really not a huge deal. If I play this for a couple minutes, it starts to feel more natural to me, but I actually notice the flatter fingerboard radius more than I would say the fanned frets on the fingerboard. Another thing that makes this guitar a little bit more challenging to play out live, if you notice the 2 guitar stands that I have behind me, those guitars are hanging by the headstock. Well, Exhibit A. So yes, if I was playing this guitar out live a lot more, I would need to come up with a different solution for putting this guitar on a stand. When I have played this guitar live, usually I'll set it down, like leaning it up against a wall, or leaning up against the amplifier, or setting it on top of a chair, or the piano, or the snare drum, or the bass player's head.
So I hear all the time Strandberg guitar owners don't have a stand to use with their guitar. Well, I have a solution. So if you own a gig bag, and this would be exactly the kind that the guitar usually ships with. If you look, there's a little loop underneath the tag. This is the part where the straps are, right? You can stick the neck through that and just stick the lower bout into one of the handles, right? And there you go. Instant corner stand.
How have your guitars held up over time?
I've played those guitars a bunch, and I have not had anything go wrong with them.
For having this guitar for almost a year and playing it quite a bit and traveling a lot with it, this thing is really kind of built like a tank, which is surprising for how light it is. On the guitar and finish-wise, I can't really notice anything that I've done to it. It's still in really great condition.
What changes would you like to see from Strandberg in the future?
I'm just curious of how the bass response would be a little more full, like a normal Tele, if for example, there was like a more of a body to the instrument. But again, the thing sounds great as is. I mean, you can always just adjust your amp settings and then that's fixed.
I would definitely love to see Strandberg offer a guitar with maybe a little bit more of a rounded fingerboard radius. Just for me, if I was designing my perfect Strandberg guitar, something around the 10-inch range. And this might just be purely aesthetics for me, but I really like the look of a roasted maple neck. I think with the carbon fiber reinforcement in this, I don't know that it would actually be that big of a benefit to roast the neck, but I love the look of roasted maple. Also, in particular to this guitar, in position 4, which splits the neck humbucker into a single coil, I find that I actually don't use that quite as much as I would have thought. So I would like to have maybe another option on this guitar that is the 2 humbuckers in parallel rather than the inner coils or the outer coils. I do like the sound of 2 humbuckers together, like my PRSs.
I'd like to see them actually do an Esquire style, Tele style guitar. I think that the one that I built reminds us all how incredibly flexible a single pickup guitar is. I'm a big jazz fan as well, and Julian Lage actually did a tour a couple years ago where for a big piece of it, he said in a recent rig rundown on Premier Guitar that he just, for grins, played the bridge pickup for, 10 gigs or something. you'd never know. His hands are amazing. And I think that, frankly, my flirtation with single pickup guitars, including that classic Salin and now the Masvidalian guitar, continue to show me how much you can get out of a single guitar. And I've been thinking about doing a video. I will be doing a video with the Masvidalian talking about how the vast majority of professional players pretty much live on the bridge pickup, whether it's Robin Ford or Jeff McErlane or David Grissom, all of whom have told me in different interviews that they play between 95 and 100% of the time on their bridge pickup. I'd also add that I would like to see a Salin model with a tremolo. I was on a live stream with Isaac and Ola, and also Connor Kaminsky was in the chat, and we sort of ganged up on Ola to try to get him to do a Salin with a tremolo bridge, but that has yet to happen, so we'll stay on him. I'm going to have Ola on my live stream during the year this year, and I look forward to teasing him about that.
Thank you again to Keith, Matt, and Tory for sharing your thoughts. My biggest takeaway is actually that if you like a Strandberg guitar, you should probably also consider a PRS guitar, especially the DGT model. But if you want to know my full thoughts on Strandberg guitars, you'll want to join me for the final episode of the Strandberg Experiment.